Hello my friends, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. In today's video I am going to show you how I painted a pine cone on a branch using alcohol inks, Dr. P.H. Martin's liquid acrylic in white, and I only used that because I could not find my snow cap. I bought a brand new bottle but it was upstairs and I just used what I had, which is what you should do. If you don't have the Dr. P.H. Martin's liquid acrylic, you can use a snow cap, which is what I had intended to use to begin with. I'll also be using my dry palette and a few different brushes. So you can see here that I've put down a few different shades of green onto my photo paper, and I used a flat brush to create a little texture on the paper. And then I'll use my blow dryer to dry it. And I'll be using my dry palette for most of this painting. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with a dry palette, I will link a video in the description box in which I explain what a dry palette is, how to create one, and why you would want to use one. But for now, I'll tell you that using a dry palette allows you more control of the inks, as you can see in this painting. So what you do is you put your inks, your wet inks, into each of those wells, and you allow it to dry, and then you activate the inks with a dampened brush, in alcohol of course, and it allows you to have this much control where you can paint these very detailed branches and a pine cone. So you'll see as I go along. Now to create the pine cone, I'm creating these ovals. I'm making them larger in the center of the pine cone and making them smaller towards the top and the bottom of the pine cone. And the color that I'm using is teakwood, which happens to be my darkest brown. And now I'm just filling in the area in between those ovals. And of course you can make them triangular, you can make them ovals, whatever your interpretation of a pine cone is. And you can see that where I think I need to add a few more to enhance the shape of my pine cone, I just add a couple more of those little ovals and then fill in the areas in between with the teakwood. And let me remind you, please, to like, comment, and subscribe. Your interaction with my channel is very helpful, and it's a very nice way to show your support. Also, if you want to know more about the products that I'm using, take a look in the description box where I have listed all the products along with links. If you don't see the list, click on Show More and the list will expand. So here I am starting the base layer of my pine needles, and I'm using that tiny little brush, and I think the color that I'm using at this moment is oregano, and this is just the base layer for your pine needles. So I'm just using a little bit of the ink, activated ink from my dry palette on the brush, making sure that I don't have too much alcohol on my brush because I don't want the ink to bloom when I put it to the paper. So I'm just flicking my wrist to create those little pine needles, and you can create them as long or as short as you like. But you want to use different shades of greens and browns so that your pine needles have a little bit of depth. And you can see that I created the branches just by adding some sketchy, skippy little lines with a heavy consistency of the teakwood. So now I'm switching to a different shade of green. This one is a much brighter green and maybe the color meadow or botanical, I'm not sure. But you can see that the pine needles are kind of fading into my background. But don't worry, we will use a darker shade of green to make those pine needles pop right off the page. And the color that I'm going to use to do that is my darkest green, and that is Rainforest Green by Pinata. If you don't have a really, really dark green, don't worry. You can take your darkest green, mix a little bit of purple into it, and mix it on a non-porous surface. Let it dry and use that like I'm using my dry palette. And you can see here, you can also mix brown with a dark green. You can add a little bit of black, but usually green and purple will darken the green. So I'm using the Pinata Rainforest Green. And I don't have it on my dry palette. So what I will do is I will put a drop on the lid of my dry palette and then use my blow dryer to dry it. And now you can see, once I start applying that dark green, and I'm switching brushes to a brush with longer bristles. It's a liner brush. And you can see that the pine needles will start to pop right off the page. But it's nice to have that base layer with the different shades of green to give a little bit of depth to your pine needles. Be sure to dab your brush and not have too much alcohol because you don't want your pine needles to bloom. You can see how nicely it's coming together and how now it's starting to stand out a little bit. Once I finished the painting, I did feel like I needed a little bit more detail. So off camera, I did use a Micron pen to add, with a fine nib that is, to add a little bit more detail to my pine needles. And I also used a white gel pen to enhance the snow that I had applied with the acrylic ink onto my branches. And I also added a black border around the painting. And if you would like to see the finished painting, you can take a look on my Facebook page, Vivo Vintage Designs. You can also follow me on my Facebook page because I do add videos that I don't add to YouTube, and some of my art. And that's where you can add your paintings in the comment section of the videos so that you can share your paintings with me. I'd love to see how you do if you give one of my videos a try. So here I'm adding a little bit of the teak wood into my pine needles for a little bit more depth and defining my branches a little bit more. Now this painting could make a really cute Christmas card or even just a nice holiday painting for your holiday decor. I've made a ton of Christmas cards, so this will just be a little painting that I put in a frame and maybe put into my living room. I think I have enough Christmas cards and gift tags for the next 2 holidays. Okay, so here, again, I could not find my snow cap, so I used the Dr. P.H. Martin's acrylic, liquid acrylic. And it's a good thing that I did because I had an accident, and if I had used the snow cap, I would have ruined my painting. But because the acrylic ink is water-based, I was okay, and I managed to save the painting because it didn't reactivate the inks, which are alcohol-based. So you can see here that I'm using the acrylic, liquid acrylic, to add a little snow detail onto my branches and to my pine cone, which again I further enhanced after the video using a gel pen. Now I added a little bit of water to the acrylic, the liquid acrylic, because I wanted to splatter some of that white onto the paper to make it look like it was snowing, but I had too much water on the brush, and you can see it plopped right onto my pine cone. But I was able to just lift it off because one is water-based and the inks are alcohol-based, so it didn't reactivate the inks, and I was able to save the painting. Thank goodness. So here I'm just splattering, and then I will use my little brush to add that detail back onto my little pine cone, filling in with the teak wood, and then using the acrylic, liquid acrylic, to further enhance the snow look of the pine cone. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed this video and that you give it a try. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to share your version of my painting with me, you can do that in the comment section on my Facebook page just beneath this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. And there we go. Finished. Bye.